And good morning from Mission Control in Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room at the Johnson Space Center, where at this hour, flight controllers working with their colleagues at the Russian Mission Control Center in the town of Korolyov on the outskirts of Moscow are preparing to bid farewell to 3 of the crew members on board the International Space Station for their return back to Earth on the Soyuz MS-25 spacecraft. The Soyuz MS-25, which is docked to the Prishal node module, which in turn is linked to the Nyoka multipurpose laboratory module on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station, is the ticket home tonight for NASA's Tracy Dyson and 2 Russian cosmonauts from Roscosmos, Oleg Kononenko and Nikolai Chub. Kononenko and Chub are completing an ISS record 374 days in space since they were launched over a year ago in September of 2023. Tracy Dyson is wrapping up a mission of 184 days in duration, 182 days aboard the International Space Station. In terms of the statistics, Dyson returning home tonight having completed 2,944 orbits of the Earth in a mission that will have spanned 78 million statute miles in this her 3rd flight into space. Kononenko and Chub will be completing 374 days in space, 5,984 orbits of the Earth, a mission that will have spanned 158.6 million statute miles. And again, Kononenko and Chub eclipsed the former endurance record for any single ISS mission this past Friday when they went past the 371-day mark that was set a year ago by Sergei Prokopyev, Dmitry Petelin, and NASA's Frank Rubio. The 3 departing crew members placed their Soyuz spacecraft on autonomous power about 35 to 40 minutes ago as they are preparing to say farewell to the other 9 crew members on board the International Space Station. The new station commander, Sonny Williams, joined by Matt Dominic, Mike Barrett, Jeanette Epps, Don Pettit, and Butch Wilmore, and Roscosmos cosmonauts Alexei Ovchinin, Ivan Wagner, and Alexander Grabenkin. On Sunday morning, Kononenko, who is completing the 3rd command of the International Space Station that he has held, handed over the keys of the kingdom to Sonny Williams, the NASA astronaut, who now is the new space station commander and commander of the International Space Station for the 2nd time. Let's take a look back at the Sunday morning change of command ceremony.
Okay, Houston. I would like to thank all space agencies and Mission Control Center for the great help and support from the ground. Thanks to all my crewmates for your friendship. It has been a great time to work and a great pleasure to work and spend time together here as a big family. On board in the space station, and right now I am leaving my 2nd home, the space station, in Sanita's delicate hands. I am pass you the key to the International Space Station and some words in Russian. Я хочу сказать огромное спасибо всем специалистам Центров управления полетом, которые осуществляли нашу поддержку в течение всего года, ежедневно помогая нам выполнять текущие плановые задачи и решая наши возникающие проблемы. Спасибо огромное нашему дружному экипажу за совместную работу. И передаю командование астронавту НАСА Саните Уильямс.
So I guess I get to say a couple words, so I appreciate it, Oleg. This Expedition 71 has taught all of us a lot about flexibility, the ability to adapt to a number of amazing things. A lot of things weren't planned, and somehow you guys put it all together and did it. It's pretty amazing, pretty impressive. You adopted Butch and I, even though that was not quite the plan, but here we are as part of the family. You welcomed Don, Alexei, and Ivan with open arms. And with your Soyuz crew and Crew 8, you have made this a great family. We appreciate it. Oleg, we'll miss your hundreds of stories around the dinner table. But I guess that's what you get for having over 1,000 days in space. Okay. You get those stories, right? Kolya, we're going to miss your precision, your professionalism, but I guess that's what you get when you sign up for your rookie flight as over a year in space. And Tracy, we're going to miss your desk and your organization and your ability to make order out of chaos, even in the craziest of times. So we thank you, all three of you, for that. So I'm going to try. Ja hotilabi poželat vám uspechov, udači i mjaky pisadky. Do встречи на земле. Спасибо.
And Station Houston, thank you. We'll be resuming normal operational audio. 12 years and 7 days ago was the last time Sunny had the keys in her hand. Glad to have him back.
That was spacecraft communicator Mike Jensen on Sunday morning, relaying the fact that Sonny Williams, who's now the commander of the International Space Station, first became a station commander during Expedition 33 just over 12 years ago. One other note for the returning crew, Oleg Kononenko comes back to Earth on Monday morning with 1,111 days in space on his 5 space flights, including 3 commands of the International Space Station. He and Roscosmos cosmonaut Fyodor Yurchikhin are the only 2 people who have commanded the station 3 times. Other 2-time commanders include Scott Kelly, Oleg Kotov, Anton Shkaplerov, Pavel Vinogradov, Peggy Whitson, and Jeff Williams. As the International Space Station flies 260 miles over the southern Indian Ocean, about to begin a southwest to northeasterly track that will carry it across the equator a short time from now, in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator. Airborne on a Russian Antonov 26 aircraft are the Rosaviatsa Search and Recovery Forces and the NASA team that is embedded with them to support this morning's recovery of the Soyuz MS-25 crew. At the time of undocking, that is scheduled for 3:36 and 30 seconds a.m. Central Time, 4:36 and 30 seconds a.m. Eastern Time, Expedition 71 will come to an end, and Expedition 72 will formally begin. The current deorbit burn time is scheduled at 6:05 and 46 seconds a.m. Central, 7:05 and 46 seconds a.m. Eastern Time. That will be a 4-minute, 39-second retrograde firing of the Soyuz engines to slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, allowing it to drop out of orbit for its descent back into the Earth's atmosphere. Landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan in a remote site about 91 miles to the southeast of the town of Jezkazgan is scheduled at 6:59 and 22 seconds a.m. Central, 7:59 and 22 seconds a.m. Eastern Time, which will be 4:59:22 Kazakhstan time, about 1 hour and 13 minutes before sunset at the landing site. We'll talk a lot more about the landing operations as the morning unfolds. As mentioned earlier, the NASA team is aboard an Antonov 26 aircraft. They are flying, it's about a 2 hour and 15-minute flight from the staging city of Karaganda, Kazakhstan, down to Zhezkazgan. Zhezkazgan is in the south-central region of Kazakhstan. That's where the Russian Mi-8 helicopters are pre-staged. The team of search and recovery forces, including the NASA team, will get off that Antonov. They'll spend a short time in the Zhezkazgan airport before they board the Russian Mi-8 helicopters for what will amount to about a 25-minute flight down to the landing zone. They will arrive in a racetrack pattern around the landing zone, waiting for the Soyuz to descend under its main parachute. And once the Soyuz has touchdown to complete this mission, the helicopters will land in sequential fashion, and the teams will begin the process of extracting Dyson, Kononenko, and Chub from the descent module of the Soyuz complement. They will allow the crew to have several minutes to get their land legs back, if you will. For Kononenko and Chub, this is the first time that they will experience gravity in more than a year. For Tracy Dyson, her first sensation of gravity in more than 6 months in space. They'll be brought out of the Soyuz and put in chairs by the spacecraft. And once they have regained a bit of equilibrium, they'll be carried in those chairs into a nearby inflatable medical tent to get out of their Sokol launch and entry suits into more comfortable flight clothing, and then they'll be brought into towards individual helicopters in which they'll be flown 2 hours back to the staging city of Karaganda. Dyson will board a NASA plane that is waiting at the Karaganda airport for her trip back to the Johnson Space Center. The two cosmonauts will board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft for a flight back to their homes at their training base in Star City, Russia, outside of Moscow. We are standing by for video from inside the Prishal module that will show the departing crew members saying farewell to their space station colleagues. They will float into the Soyuz vehicle, which, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, has been placed on autonomous power. The hatch to Prishal, and there's our view inside the cramped quarters of the Prishal module. As you see, Oleg Kononenko, the Soyuz commander in the green shirt. On the right is NASA astronaut Mike Barrett, Tracy Dyson, bidding farewell to Ivan Wagner that you see in the red shirt. As Kononenko and company, there's Nikolai Chub right behind Kononenko. The departing crew saying farewell to the space station crew that remains on board the International Space Station. Once Kononenko, Chub, and Dyson move into the Soyuz vehicle, the hatch to the Prishal module will be closed, and then a few minutes later, the hatch to the Soyuz vehicle will be closed. You can see in the red shirt by the hatchway is Alexei Ovchinin, who launched 12 days ago, along with Don Pettit and Ivan Wagner, on the Soyuz MS-25 spacecraft from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Tracy Dyson launched back in March. Her return on Monday morning will wrap up her third flight into space and will give her an aggregate total of 373 days in space on her 3 space flights. In the blue shirt, in the foreground, is cosmonaut Alexander Grebenkin, part of the Crew 8 crew that will be returning to Earth on a SpaceX Dragon spacecraft in early October. And there, the 3 departing crew members have now left the International Space Station Prishal module. They are inside Soyuz, waving goodbye as they will make final preparations. Once the hatches are closed, the crew will perform a series of initial leak checks at the docking interface between the Soyuz and the Prishal module before they will don their Sokol launch and entry suits. The 3 departing crew members will be in the descent module, the center section of the 3-section Soyuz vehicle. Kononenko, as the Soyuz commander, will be in the center seat, flanked on his left by Nikolai Chub, who is board engineer number 1 for the entry and landing operations. Tracy Dyson will be on Kononenko's right as board engineer number 2. The Spaceflight Meteorology Group here at the Johnson Space Center has issued a forecast for landing, which again in Kazakhstan will be about an hour and 13 minutes before sunset on Monday. The initial forecast calls for scattered clouds at 8,000 feet, 28,000 feet, gusty winds, but temperatures around 73 degrees. So the hatch to the Soyuz now closed at 12:02 a.m. and now the hatch to the Prishal module being closed. So we have hatch closure at 12:02 a.m. Central Time, 1:02 a.m. Eastern Time on Monday morning. With the closing of the hatches, leak checks will get underway a short time from now. The crew will then don their Sokol launch and entry suits and begin a series of communications checks with the Russian flight control team at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov on the outskirts of Moscow. You can see at the hatchway is Alexei Ovchinin along with Ivan Wagner.
Экипаж МКС ЦУПу Москвы в канале СГ-1 для Алексея.
Station Moscow, space to ground 1 for Alexei.
The International Space Station, moving from southwest to northeast, will cross the coast of Indonesia a short time from now. This is a good view in the center of your screen of the Soyuz MS-25 spacecraft docked to the Prishal module. That's the bulbous multi-hatched node module that is linked to the Naoka multi-purpose laboratory module on the Earth-facing side of the International Space Station.
Is closed. Do you see the telemetry? Well, we still have about 20 minutes. We still have time.
Just to the right of that, on the far right of your screen, is the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft that is docked to the Rosviet module, also on the Earth-facing side of the station. That is the vehicle that brought up NASA's Don Pettit and Roscosmos cosmonauts Alexei Ovchinin and Ivan Wagner just 12 days ago.
Можешь заворачивать, вот на эту залепливать. Николай, you can turn it here. Свернуть. Оставить в укро и на иллюминатор пролепить. Там на иллюминаторе видишь укро. You can attach it to this Velcro strap. Is the stick here? Yes, it's here.
Oh, I was just looking.
With Dyson, Kononenko, and Shub now inside the Soyuz MS-25 spacecraft, they will continue to make preparations for the undocking that is scheduled about 3 hours and 29 minutes from now. The undocking command that enables the hooks to open between the Soyuz spacecraft and the Prishal docking port will be issued at 3:35 a.m. Central Time. It takes about 90 seconds for those hooks to open. Springs on both sides of the docking interface will push off against one another, allowing the Soyuz to begin its departure from the International Space Station. The Soyuz will move to a point well away from the station for the deorbit burn. That will be a braking maneuver, a retrograde maneuver of 4 minutes and 39 seconds in duration, allowing the Soyuz to drop out of orbit for its high-speed entry back into the Earth's atmosphere. Pyrotechnics will then allow the 3 sections of the Soyuz to separate from one another. The crew, of course, inside the center section, the descent module. That module separation scheduled at 6:33 a.m. Central Time. The Soyuz will move into the atmosphere, and then as it approaches the landing site, a drogue chute will be deployed. The command to open the chutes will be issued at 6:44 and 55 seconds a.m. Central Time. The drogue chute then pulls out the main chute of the Soyuz. It takes 15 minutes from that point until the Soyuz lands, but not before one final burst of the soft landing engines to soften and cushion the landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan, with landing scheduled at 6:59 a.m. Central Time, 7:59 a.m. Eastern Time, 4:59 p.m. at the landing site about 91 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan. The search and recovery forces, called Rosaviatsa, along with the NASA support team, they are en route to Zhezkazgan from the staging city in Karaganda on a Russian Antonov military aircraft. That Antonov will also serve as a command and relay station to relay data and voice from the Soyuz crew back to the Russian flight control team in Korolyov outside of Moscow as the Soyuz approaches the landing site. The search and recovery forces and the embedded NASA team will arrive at the Zhezkazgan airport a couple of hours from now. They'll pause in their work for a short period of time before they board helicopters. With rotors spinning, they'll be airborne, wheels up from Zhezkazgan right around the time of the deorbit burn, heading for the landing site where they will watch the Soyuz approach under its main chute. Again, touchdown scheduled on Monday morning at 6:59 a.m. Central Time, 7:59 a.m. Eastern Time.
Form 23, Form 14, food rations. And yes, you're talking about Form 14? Yes, we have it. It's great. And you also...
So with Tracy Dyson Oleg Kononenko and Nikolai Chub inside the Soyuz MS-25 that you see at the very top of your screen. They will be starting the work to conduct leak checks at both sides of the docking interface between the Soyuz and the Prishal docking port, and then will don their Sokol launch and entry suits and climb into their respective seats in the descent module, the center section of the Soyuz vehicle. So that'll wrap up our hatch closure broadcast for this morning, and we will point you to the resumption of coverage of Soyuz MS-25's return to Earth at 3 a.m. Central Time, 4 a.m. Eastern Time, just a few hours from now, as the Soyuz departs the International Space Station. At the time of undocking, Expedition 71 will come to an end. Expedition 72 will formally begin. So join us back here in a couple of hours or so for undocking coverage. In the meantime, this is Mission Control Houston.